keeping an eye on NVIDIA this morning. Super interesting, up about 0.25%. It's interesting. A lot of analysts now a little worried that this is entering overbought territory. The stock is now worth, according to its market value, about $4.2 trillion. BTIG says the sentiment is getting borderline giddy. So, Danny, a lot of interest in this. Of course, this is what's leading the Magnificent Seven a little bit higher.
But maybe it's worth it, especially if you have a Jensen Huang who is now being able to shape White House policy that's being allowed yet again to sell H20 chips into China. You could look at it not exactly the same, but kind of like Elon Musk in the beginning of Trump's presidency. Maybe he has the president's ear, and therefore some of that valuation, extra valuation and premium might be worth it.
This is a strange earnings season because you have the political rhetoric also really seeping into the market. That's kind of overlaying how people feel about the numbers themselves. We heard from TSMC about some guidance. We heard from ASML. But we're ending the week pretty strong with all of that noise. And
shares of NVIDIA up about 5% since announcing that it does expect to be able to resume selling those H20 chips in China, a move that could add some fresh fuel for China's AI ambitions. For that, we'll turn to Deirdre Bosa today in today's Tech Check. Happy Friday, Dee.
Hey, happy Friday. Good morning, Carl. So the plus side for the U.S. of this development is that the momentum will still run on American rails. With the H20's return, NVIDIA, it remains the backbone of Chinese AI, not just through hardware, but through CUDA software too, which we talked about. It locks developers into NVIDIA's ecosystem. The downside, though, is that Chinese labs, they're getting very good at doing more with less. DeepSeek's original R1 and now the latest breakout challenger, Kimi K2, they have proved that models can be scaled and optimized on far less performant hardware. Now, despite the export ban, they've already been gaining ground, Chinese models. Take a look at the model rankings on llamarina.ai. Kimi 2, an open source model from Alibaba-backed startup Moonshot, it's in 5th place overall, jumping ahead of DeepSeek. The next non-Chinese open source model on the leaderboard, that's Mistral's, while Meta's Llama, which was once the gold standard in open source, it has fallen way down to spot number 34. Now, the hardware story may be shifting again. NVIDIA is preparing the B30. This is another export-compliant chip just for China, with shipments expected as early as this quarter. AMD is sampling a China-legal version of its MI300X. The net effect, guys, is that instead of starving China's AI push, the U.S. policy is creating a parallel hardware channel just trimmed for compliance. And really, that's exactly what policymakers like AI star David Sachs intended to do. But this also opens up a new, extremely competitive leg of the AI race, where it's not about slowing anyone down, but about who can innovate and who can execute better. Markets, they could start to reflect that shift. The NASDAQ may be hitting fresh record highs, but the Chinese tech index, it is quietly outperforming this year. The K-Web basket that includes Alibaba, Baidu, Tencent, others, that's up 25% year to date versus the NASDAQ's 8%. And longer term, guys, there is another trade-off. The more China gets access to U.S. chips, the less pressure there is to use and even develop its own. So that could slow their independence and may help keep a lid on Huawei's rise. That is the point of all of this. One major caveat, though, none of this is guaranteed. Just this morning, the top Republican who chairs the House China Committee, he sent a letter to the Commerce Department objecting to the resumption of H20 shipments. So a reminder that this dynamic can change at any time, and so can the trade-offs.
Fantastic. But let's pivot to NVIDIA, because I think this goes back to the opening of the show. If things are frothy, what do you do? Because many people, many viewers are lucky enough to own NVIDIA, and it's gone up a lot. The last time we bought it in mid-April, I think it was under $90 a share, and it's in the 170s right now. We now have a 12.6% weighting in our growth strategy in the QD vote, Frank, and that's a lot for one name. This isn't a hedge against a stock going down, it's a hedge against position risk. So we wrote a 1-month covered call for a $180 strike. We brought in $3.50. It expires in a month. If we're called out of it, we're called out at 183.5, which is over $10, more than 6% from where it is now in a month, and that's on half the position. So it's just risk management, not a critique against the name by any means.
Right. When you're doing a cover call like this on NVIDIA, of all names, I mean, actually, why on NVIDIA? I mean, especially with some of the news that we had. Did you do this before the news earlier this week with the H20 chip?
No, we did this yesterday because the position size, and we're running a portfolio with a risk lens being very, very important for our investors. And anytime you have too much in one stock, and it's great that it's going up. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's really wonderful, but things don't always go up forever. And when they roll over, we want to, and I'm not suggesting that this one's going to, but when things happen, we want to make sure that we've got the position size properly. So this is professional risk management.
And was it an intentional 1 month? Because I believe, not looking at the calendar, they would expire before the earnings come out?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
Right. So
because NVIDIA reports later than everyone else.
Right, August 27th. So are you going to be naked in protection, in other words, when the quarter goes? You don't have to make that decision now,
No, that would be our expectation.
Right, because the stock goes to 200, I imagine, in advance of the earnings, I imagine you'll have a different view.
We will, if it's at 200 at the end of next month, a week before earnings, will be called out. But if it's not, our option will expire on the 25th, I think, and then we'll just remain long into earnings.
Right.
Because we're expecting earnings to be good.
Wise, you own NVIDIA as well. So, I mean, what do you think of his trade and also just your outlook from now until earnings? Obviously, we're going to get reports from the hyperscalers, a number of other players. So we'll have some sense of demand.
You know, I think it's generally a smart strategy. It's not necessarily what I do. I'll do it in some instances, not here, because this stock could be up or down for no reason, $6, you know, on a day. I'm just picking a number, and you pick that number because it would take them to 183. So I think it's a good trade. Look, it's all how you manage your portfolio, manage your risk, and what you've told your investors you're going to do. So he's abiding by his discipline that he's communicated to investors. That's what he's doing. Guess what? It's worked marvelously for him over the years. So why wouldn't he keep doing it?
That's why I'd pay him $100 million if I could.
Well,
where do I sign?
All right, I hope you're all doing well today. NVIDIA finished the day slightly lower after briefly reaching a new intraday high at today's open. Today, a U.S. representative told the Commerce Secretary that reversing the H20 ban to China is a mistake and that banning the chips was the right call. I don't expect this to change the outcome of the situation, and I think there is a lack of understanding on the topic. Remember that we are talking about the H20, which is substantially lower spec than NVIDIA's latest products. Additionally, the H20 was specifically designed for the Chinese market. It is in the United States' best interest that the world's AI developers build on the American tech stack. Half of the world's AI developers live in China, and it is a massive strategic benefit to the U.S. that those developers build on NVIDIA's platform rather than turning to a domestic competitor, such as Huawei. Yesterday, we learned from TSMC that they have not yet received the signal from NVIDIA to ramp production of the H20 backup. That being said, NVIDIA has billions of dollars of H20 inventory ready to be sold, as the company took a $4.5 billion write-down on what was primarily H20 inventory back when the export control was announced a few months ago. China represented about 13% of NVIDIA's revenue before the export control went into effect, and it's encouraging that NVIDIA will have access to the Chinese market once again. I continue to be bullish on the long-term future of NVIDIA, and I think the company still has runway ahead of it. Next week, all eyes will be on hyperscaler earnings, with Alphabet reporting on Thursday, July 23rd. Market participants will be paying close attention to Alphabet's CapEx guidance to get a sense of AI demand. As TSMC said on their earnings call this week, AI demand continues to grow stronger and stronger. Google is likely seeing strong demand for AI from AI Search, VO3, and their other AI apps, and so I would expect their CapEx guide to be strong. I continue to be bullish on the long-term future of NVIDIA. I'm sure that many of you remember last year, I said repeatedly that I would not be surprised to see NVIDIA's business double within 2 years. Of course, I don't know what multiple the market will apply to the stock during that time, but if the business grows, the stock is likely to follow. Anyway, I thought NVIDIA would double within 2 years. I said that back before there was any restriction on NVIDIA's H20 sales to China, and China represented about 13% of NVIDIA's revenue before the restriction. After the restriction was announced, I thought it would likely be reversed at some point, but I didn't know when. And so, as the months went by, I became hesitant to talk about NVIDIA's business doubling within 2 years, as I originally said back in 2024, because I needed more clarity on the export situation before continuing to make a call like that. But now that NVIDIA can once again sell into China, and after seeing how resilient NVIDIA has been even without having access to the China market, I honestly think that a doubling of NVIDIA's business within 2 years is likely from when I originally made that call back in 2024. Keep in mind that I don't know what the future holds, and I could be wrong, but that is my honest opinion. I seriously think NVIDIA still has runway ahead of it. I also really like the setup for the second half of this year, and I think NVIDIA is likely to have a really strong third and fourth quarters. The first Blackwell Ultra system has launched, and production should really start ramping up in August and September. NVIDIA maintains their competitive moat across the entire stack, both hardware and software, and their software offerings in CUDA are such a massive advantage in maintaining their moat. We have a clear data center product roadmap that extends through 2028 with a new product release each year. NVIDIA continues to deliver performance upgrades that are so significant that their customers continue purchasing NVIDIA's latest products in large quantities. These performance upgrades directly increase the revenues of NVIDIA's customers. And Jensen believes that the world's computing CapEx will reach $1 trillion annually by 2030. And that's not to mention NVIDIA's future in quantum, massive sovereign AI deals, and NVIDIA bringing AI to the world's enterprise IT, which Jensen believes is an opportunity worth hundreds of billions of dollars. While I don't know what will happen in the short term, I continue to be bullish on the long-term future of NVIDIA, and I genuinely think this company's brightest days are ahead. At least that's my view of the situation. Remember to stay calm in this market. Remember to maintain a long-term perspective, and do not make any hasty or irrational decisions. With all of that being said, I hope you all have a great rest of the day, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts about NVIDIA in the comments below. Please leave a like on this video so more people will see it. And while you're down there, please consider subscribing. It's free, and you can always change your mind. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.